Telisha. My background is Guyanese. I'm of Guyanese heritage, South American. I'm the first from my mom's side to go to university ever. So I took the traditional route to the law. I did my LLB at the University of Westminster. And then I took a gap year. I then proceeded to do the bar training course at BPP University. Sure. So the bar training course that I did was £13,000. Now that will vary depending on which university you go to. I know it's quite hefty. 30,000 for 9 months is quite hefty. But they do have a lot of. Why you want to become a barrister? What is motivating you to do it? Because that's what's going to get you through the few rounds of rejections.
We start with
Okay,
your
great.
basic introduction. So, can you introduce yourself from where you are and how you start your primary education and your higher education from where you have got?
Sure. So my name is Telisha. My background is Guyanese. I'm of Guyanese heritage, South American. I'm the first from my mom's side to go to university ever. So I took the traditional route to the law. I did my LLB at the University of Westminster. And then I took a gap year. I then proceeded to do the bar training course at BPP University, at which point I was called to the bar. And then I decided to work in-house at a company specializing in employment law. I've since gained a lot of experience working freelance, specializing in employment law, but also other areas such as housing law and commercial law. And I've recently set up my own legal consulting firm called Shifra Legal Services, Ltd. And we mainly specialize in providing employment law services, particularly in unfair dismissal, advocacy in the tribunal, and settlement negotiations. I'm not sure how much you guys know about employment law or how interested you guys are in that, but it's a pretty interesting area of law, if I do say so myself.
Okay. So, can you tell
So yeah.
so can you tell me when we are going to the bar, so what specific subjects we have to study during the bar?
Sure. So, in terms of the route to the bar, you can do the traditional route as I did, the LLB law, and then you can go on to do the bar training course if you want to do the barrister route, or you can do the LPC, which is the solicitor route. In terms of particular modules at the bar, are you referring to the LLB? And then we'll go on to the bar training course. So, the modules in the LLB, you have criminal law, you have land law. No one really likes land law, but it's just something you kind of have to do. Uh, you have land law. You also have tort law, which under that you have like defamation. You will have like public inquiries, those type of things. Um, in that regard, yeah, agreeable with land law. No one likes land laws. So yeah, definitely in terms of under that regard. Then in the second year, you generally can choose more options. I chose family law. I also chose uh, legal psychology. So that was very interesting, understanding how psychology and the law intersect. But there's a variety of areas that you can choose from. And again, you have the ability to have more options in your third year. It does depend on where you go to study your LLB, the university, the type of modules, but generally the cores are usually always the same. And one thing getting through that, it's really just about balancing. Yes, family law, public law is also one on the curriculum in the first year. Family law is an option that I was given and I chose in my second year. But then we have public law, you have tort law, you have criminal law, you have contract law, land law, public law, all of those within the first year. Generally speaking, when it comes to that, I think it's a good foundation just so you have an idea of, you get a feel for every area. So you kind of know, okay, which area do I want to go into? Which area do I want to pursue? As you can tell, land law and public law weren't really my thing.
Okay. So,
But
can you tell me what is the difference between the solicitor and barrister in UK to practice?
sure. So the barrister route, in essence, the main role of a barrister is when you stand up in court, you provide advocacy on behalf of your client, whereas the solicitors, they're the first point of contact and they do a lot of the paperwork. That's in essence a very rudimentary breakdown. But ultimately, the source is the same. You both do the LLB. You could then go on to do the bar training course, as I did. or you can do the LPC as one of my friends did, who decided to take the solicitor route. It in terms of choosing which side you want to do, that's almost entirely based on your preference, which areas you think are the most enjoyable. I, for example, like to talk. I don't know if you guys have noticed that yet, but so the advocacy route kind of made sense for me. Just meeting a variety of people and those things. So going into it, it's definitely something to think about. Why do you want to do the bar route? What is motivating you to do it? And what skills do you have that make you better suited for doing the bar route as opposed to the solicitor route? So that's definitely something to consider before you start going into it.
So thank you very much. Can you tell me detail in that? What is the course timeline? It's a 1 year bar, 2 year bar, and how it takes to complete the bar. How much time it takes to complete the bar?
Yeah, so I did my bar training course. I started in 2020. It's a year's course. You have the option to do it part-time, in which case it would take slightly longer. I had the interesting experience of doing my bar training course during the pandemic. So it was all online. So it's not exactly the traditional route to go down, but that was a very interesting experience. I just about survived. So, but I made it here. So in that regard, you have a set of modules that you would traditionally do. You have civil litigation, you have criminal litigation. You then have professional ethics, where you dive into the ethical codes that you're supposed to follow as a barrister. In addition to that, you also have drafting. So, under drafting, you would learn how to draft defenses, skeleton arguments, something called opinions as well. All of that would fall under that. And you also have the advocacy part. So you're taught how to do cross examinations, examination in chief, and conferences when you're just meeting with people one to one. And that is generally broken down in different modules. You had different classes, a bit of role play going on when it came to the advocacy sessions and things like that. So that was very interesting. And that lasts for about a year. You say a year, but it's a few months. I would say maybe 9 months, I would say.
Okay.
Um,
So
at the
what
end
is
of that, you then have the test.
we mostly in Pakistan listen that it is a very costly bar is very costly. So can you tell me
Yeah.
about the fees and the cost of the bar total in UK?
Sure. So the bar training course that I did was £13,000. Now that will vary depending on which university you go to. I know it's quite hefty. 13,000 for 9 months is quite hefty. But they do have a lot of opportunities for financing. For example, when you join INS, they do provide certain scholarships or certain bursaries for certain people from certain backgrounds. So that's also an option in terms of financing. You can also get loans and things like that. You have the option to pay it off in certain installments. So again, finances is something to also consider. In terms of the LLB, that was it was 9,000 a year, I believe. So it was 27,000 in total. And then you have 27,000 plus 13,000. And you have a one-off payment of £100 to join one of the inns, and that's a lifelong membership. So if you count that in, it is quite hefty. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is definitely an investment. And I guess that's reflected in the demographic of it. But now they're definitely trying to open it up more, make it more inclusive. And part of that is them providing a lot of financing opportunities. So don't let the price tag dissuade you. If you really want to do it, there are ways around it.
So you have mentioned right now about the inns. So can you tell me what is the inn and how they regulate and what is the main role of inns in bar and what are
Sure.
types of inns in right now in UK?
Sure. So the best way I could say is they have like they're full clubs, very effective, very successful, very established clubs. I guess that's the best way to put it. You have Lincoln's Inn, you have Gray's Inn, you have Middle Temple. Um, yes, you have Gray's Inn, you have Middle Temple, you have Gray's Inn, you have Middle Temple, you have Lincoln's Inn, and the other one escapes me, but we'll circle back to that.
Yeah.
Um, how much GPA is required in LLB to become barrister from the best university? That is a good question. Over here, it's not really a matter of GPA. We don't, sorry, just going to take a quick Do
Yeah,
much.
sure,
Should
sure,
I circle
sure,
back
sure,
to it
sure.
at the end or just yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So over here, they definitely don't necessarily look at it as GPA. I definitely think as standard, do the best you can over here with LLB. Most uh, most chambers when they're looking at pupillage applications, some of them have requirements to be of 2-1 or a first class degree. Yes, yes. So 2-1 or a first class degree. So first class would obviously be the highest, 2-1 second highest, then you have 2-2, and then you have a third. That said, again, going back to the level of inclusivity, a lot of ins don't necessarily have hard line considerations when it comes to those type of things. So that's something to always bear in mind. It's good to do academically, but there are many other considerations when it comes to your turn at the bar. Going back to the ins, as I said, you have a one-off payment of £100. And then once you're a member for life. They have a variety of services they provide. They have lots of fancy dinners. They provide lots of mentorship, and generally, it's just a good environment to go to. Yeah, to meet your peers, to build a camaraderie, because being at the bar is very complicated, very challenging, very rewarding, but also very challenging. So that's generally the goal of the ins, and the role that they play in your journey and your career at the bar.
So can you tell me about that when you have done the bar or you have become a barrister? So how it's helpful in your practical life or practical field? It's very helpful in going for the future implementations or right now or not.
Definitely, I think the education is definitely a great basis. It's a great start. I think going forward, it's important to have an idea of which area you want to go into, and again, why you want to go into that particular area, because it's very competitive. It's easily to get dissuaded. You didn't understand about GPA. Should I answer these questions or should
Yeah,
I
sure,
circle back
sure,
to
sure, sure. You can answer. You can answer.
Sure. So in terms of GPA, we don't have a GPA system over here as they would in America. But when it comes to, you have to do LLB, then you have to do the bar training course, and then you join it in, you do qualifying sessions, and then once you're called to the bar, then you apply for pupillage, right? So when it comes to outside of GPA, generally I would say strive for a 2-1 or a first class degree to put you in the best possible standing. But there are many other considerations that a lot of chambers have. So it's not necessarily a hard line. Naturally, do the best you can, but a lot of chambers, they consider the applicant in totality. So your background, any extracurricular activities, any volunteering experience, any jobs, whether they were in the legal profession or not. So that's something to bear in mind. They're not very strict with it per se. It is important, but most chambers look at the candidates in their totality. Yeah. Now, going forward in terms of following up on your question, I know you were asking, it's not that you can't pursue a career at the bar, but it would naturally, the bar is very competitive, right? And because it's so competitive, it would make sense to put yourself in the best possible position. So that's not saying that you can't pursue the bar if you get a third or a 2-2. Uh, but that does mean that you may have to put in extra work in terms of volunteering for chambers or volunteering for charities or doing extracurricular activities, whatever that may look like, to really stack up your CV. What is motivating you to do it? Because that's what's going to get you through the few rounds of rejections at pupillage. To put it into perspective, thousands of people apply and to multiple chambers, for example. And each chambers, they may have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 places, depending on how big the chamber is. So that just kind of puts it into perspective. It isn't necessarily an indictment on who you are or your ability, but it does mean that it is a very competitive system. And having that in mind also enables you to manage your emotional response to the rejections and also continue to motivate you to push through the rejections, because it can be daunting, it can be quite overwhelming. But if you have a strong why, it will help you get through it.
Can you tell me just
Sorry, could you repeat that again, please? I think you're muted. Uh, Advocate Malik, you're muted. Can't hear you.
sorry, I'm really sorry. Can you tell me about the top chambers or the top law firms in the UK? It's a very quite informative for us because you are practicing in the UK. So can you tell any of one, two, or three, four that you
Sure. So it definitely depends on where you want to, what area you want to practice in. For example, you have 25 Bedford Row, you have 2 Bedford Row, really specializing in criminal law, so 7BR. There's a variety of chambers. I'm especially saying those like criminal law, for example. We have a lot of common law sets. You also have a lot of sets that specialize in chancery sets, for example. So it's almost entirely dependent on what areas you want to specialize in, which is again something to seriously consider going into it. And in terms of lots of law firms, again, that also depends on what areas of law you want to specialize in. You have the magic, you have the top ones. And those naturally are also very competitive. But again, how badly do you want it? What is motivating you to go through it? Because that's equally competitive, but you have to know your why. And that's something I keep circling back to because that is something that is throughout this long process, this expensive process, this tedious process. That is what is going to get you through it. What is your why? Why do you want to become a barrister? Why do you want to practice criminal law or civil law? Or why do you want to do employment law? Whatever area you want to practice in, it's important to start thinking about it now as to why you want to do it. Because if your motivation is money, there's many areas of law in the world you can make money. You can set up a business if you want to make money. You can invest in certain markets if you want to make money. If your role is to help people, that is a great starting point. But if you truly want to help, you could set up a charity. If you really want to help people, uh, you could volunteer at your local shops or local organizations, right? So you have to truly spend time understanding why you want to do it. Nothing with making money. It's great to help people, but you have to find a strong why for doing what you want to do because this journey, it's a lot, but it is rewarding in the end.
So that's a very great session. I did not think that the answers will be so amazing and students are enjoying for the session. Can you tell me about that? If you are going to the bar and we have completed the bar, so what is the main goal? Because many of the students or many of the people want to earn, and how can we earn a good or bad in after doing the bar? So can you elaborate a little bit about earning of the barristers in UK or solicitors in UK?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, once you're called to the bar, you have to then complete pupillage. Now, between uh, being called to the bar and completing pupillage, you still can practice law. There's something called reserved legal activities. Now, that includes notarizing documents, giving legal advice, and practicing immigration law and other areas. Outside of that, being called to the bar, you're called an unregistered barrister. So that means you can provide um, non-reserved legal services in a variety of areas. One of the things that a lot of people, one of the benefits, many benefits of pupillage is that it gives you a right to an audience. So what that means is you can stand up in court and you can advocate on behalf of your clients. Now, having not completed pupillage, you do not have the right of audience yet. However, in the employment tribunal, for example, you can provide advocacy because you don't need the right of audience to provide advocacy in that particular forum. So there's definitely other areas you can make an earning, you can earn a living after you've been called to the bar and before you've completed pupillage. There's many jobs in the civil service, uh, generally speaking, jobs, whether it's paralegal or case officers or case workers, whatever it is, there are a variety of areas. You can even set your own thing up. As I've done, I've set up my own legal consultancy firm. So there's a variety of services that you can provide and many ways in which you can make money as a barrister, an unregistered barrister, before you complete pupillage. And naturally, once you complete pupillage, the sky's the limit. You can do anything you want to do. But until then, you still have other earning options. So you don't have to wait until, oh, I spent all this money, I do all of this, I have to wait until I get to the end to get a return in my investment. That's not the case. You can make money as you continue to climb, as you continue to progress towards your goal of becoming a barrister, a registered barrister.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about if you're coming from outside the UK for bar? Can you name some of the universities or colleges that are providing a best bars or but their faculty is more good than others? Can you name some of the best colleges or universities for international students?
Absolutely, absolutely. So generally, they have a system where they kind of rank them generally. So in terms of LLB, the University of Cambridge, UCL, London School of Economics, University of Oxford, King's College London. You have Durham University, the University of Glasgow, University of Bristol, the University of Edinburgh, and the University of Nottingham. Now that's for LLBs. Now in terms of the bar training course, you have BPP, you also have King's College, you have the University of Law. Those I would say are the top ones in terms of if you really want to look into doing the bar training course. Not all universities provide that as an option. So it's definitely important to really look into what each school offers. Now, what I would say in terms of choosing the best university for you, whether it's to do the LLB or if it's to do the bar training course, it's important to look at what the university provides, where they rank. Of course, we want to go to the best. We want to be the best. We want to go to the best. I get it. It makes perfect sense. But outside of that, I do think it's important to consider a variety of other factors when you're looking at whichever university to practice at. For example, I went to the University of Westminster to do my LLB. It's not in the top 10. I didn't list that as one of the in the top 10. I'm not even sure it was an amazing university, but it wouldn't necessarily rank in terms of the metrics that they are judging. However, the culture was amazing. The diverse student body was amazing. So these are things to consider when you're looking at a university, not just looking at which ones are the top universities, but look at it in its totality. Which culture is best aligned with you? Which university provides more services that I can see myself going into? Do they have a legal clinic? Do they have a diverse culture in terms of clubs? All these things are things you should consider. So, like coming out of this, I do want you all to look at your journey to the bar holistically. Uh, it doesn't necessarily define where you go in the bar. That said, similarly to the grades you get, there are always going to be people that have a certain view of where you should go and the route you should take it. But the bar is becoming more diverse, and I think a lot more people are a lot less rigid about those requirements of where you go to, whether it's Oxford or Cambridge. Generally, looking at candidates in their totality, it's what grades did they get? What clubs were they a part of? Were they a paralegal on time? Did they volunteer at the university's law clinic? Did they volunteer at the local solicitor firm? Did they volunteer for a charity? Were they working as a paralegal during their studies? All of these things are going to be considered, not just where you go or if the university you went to was in the top 10 or if you got a two.
Have given a time. One last question. Can you give us any advice for the young lawyers or young students? Any
Mm,
good piece of advice if you want to say, can you please?
mm. Oh, definitely. I wrote lots of notes on this part of the section. something I wish I was told going into it. One, it is going to be challenging. Not, and a lot of people say that it's going to be hard work, but it is not for the faint of heart. So going back to what I said before is what is your why? You need to have a why that is strong enough that is going to push you through the bar training course, which is single-handedly one of the hardest things I've ever done in my entire life. I just about made it up. Why do you want to become a barrister? When you have those nights and the deadlines are coming and you're stressed out and you have to do some more research, what is pushing you through that versus simply giving up and saying it's too expensive, it's too much? What is your why? My why was my background from an early age. I had exposure to those in authority not living up to their role of protecting me and providing resources to me that would provide a safe environment for me as a child. So from an early age, I understood what it was like to not be protected by the system and to have people that were supposed to protect you, either they intentionally refused to do so or they simply neglected their obligations. And so going into that, coupled with my strong desire for a sense of justice and ironically defending other people, with my advocacy skills and my academics, it made perfect sense for me to go into the law and to use my voice in a way that I didn't have when I was a child, or that I didn't have anyone to do on my behalf as a child. So that's propelled me through every single stage, every single setback. And there have been a lot of setbacks. But I can honestly say my why got me through it. So you need to understand, why do you want to do it? Because again, if you want to make money, you can set up a business. If you want to help people, you can volunteer at a charity. That's just the reality. It's good to help people. It's great to make money. Okay. Putting them together, that's even in itself, that's great. But I just want you guys to truly understand that and know that. Also, something I wish people told me, it's not personal and it doesn't define who you are. For the longest while, I connected my identity to my academic achievement and my professional development and the trajectory of my career. So at any point, if I felt as though I wasn't where I should have been, it was a whole knock to my self-esteem, to my confidence, to my outlook on the world. Being a barrister is your job, you're committed to it, you may love it, but it's not who you are. It's a part of who you are. So if you look at that and you apply it to any other area of your life, if you really like playing tennis, I don't know how competitive you guys are on here, for example. I'm quite competitive, but let's say in a healthy way, in a healthy way. It's a, if you're, I don't know, you're playing tennis and you're a really good tennis player and for some reason you're injured and you can't play tennis anymore. Are you any less of the person you are today? You're who you are. You're just who you are that can no longer play tennis. So you need to have that mindset and apply it to any area of your life and realize becoming a barrister, it is a privilege. It's such a great honor to be a part of the justice system and the administration of justice, respecting the court, being part of such a pivotal system. So it is something you need to respect and honor and be humbled by in one sense.
Thank you.
With that in mind, you also need to be able to separate that from who you are, because otherwise it can be very consuming. And another thing, it's not personal. A lot of people have a lot of things going on. As I said, it's very competitive. Whether you take the straight route or whether you become a paralegal and then you progress to a caseworker, you work in a chambers as a clerk, or you work in a solicitor firm, when you realize most things are not personal and everybody is on their own journey, some people are just better at hiding their chaos than other people, then you realize it's not personal. And there's a peace that comes with that. Your interactions with people, it's not personal. If you get rejected for the paralegal role, it's not personal. If you go into work and one of your colleagues doesn't say hi to you or good morning to you, it's not personal. Everybody has their own thing going on. And so those are things that I wish I was told going into this. It's very competitive, it's very hard. So, what is your why? And drill down on that. It's not personal and it is part of you. It does not define you. So, that would be my advice.
So thank you very much once again for your precious time. Please, it's a very great session. Thanks for your precious time you have given for us and for the students. It's my humble request. Whenever you want to come Pakistan, please pay a visit. It will be
Oh,
great
definitely.
honor for us to host you in Pakistan as a great barrister, and we will show some little bit law here and different type of people you can also interact with it. So thank you once again for your time, for your everything, and for your great session. Thank you very much.